Welcome to the annual Keats-Shelley Association Award Ceremony. I'm Neil Frystad, President of the Association, sitting, as you can see, in our official virtual library. I'm joined by one of my fellow officers and co-conveners, Kate Singer. Kate?
Hello, everyone. Good evening, or very late evening, as it might be.
This gathering has always been an especially festive occasion to celebrate our long-lasting, vital, and generous community, and to recognize special contributions to that community. The past year has continued to bring challenges, well, in everything really. But for us now, the immediate challenge is in continuing to replace our customary face-to-face warmth with virtual connection. We believe that connection and warmth will be every bit as strong tonight as it was at last year's moving Zoom celebration of outstanding work on our field. And we've done our best to try to make it so. Towards that end, I'd like to begin with some public thanks to the hardworking members of our board of directors, many of whom are here, with a warm public welcome to new directors, Omar Miranda, Olivia Luxing-Moy, Emily Sun, Brian Rejak, and Lizette Lopez Switke Davis, to our splendid Keats-Shelley Journal editorial team, including editor Jonathan Mulrooney, with deep appreciation to outgoing review editors Yasmin Solomonescu and Andrew Burke. To Andy Stauffer and the Byron Society for their long-standing collaboration on large events. To Steve Barrett, the head of our mentoring initiative, and the crew of volunteer mentors. To the many leaders and participants in our public programs and colloquia. To our nominations committee, Stuart Curran, Lindsay Eckert, Oren Wong, for reaching out to members for new directors. And most of all, to our diligent officers, Vice Presidents Deidre Lynch and Kate Singer, Treasurer Bob Hartley, and Secretary Olivia Luxing-Moy. Deidre and Kate are responsible for conceptualizing and organizing tonight's ceremony, for which great thanks is owed them. Finally, public thanks are also due to our terrific communications team, Director of Communication Anna Mercer, and Communication Fellows Mariam Wasif and Amy Wilkinson. I'll turn it over to Kate now to begin the celebration. Kate?
Welcome, everyone. Just a few notes on our Zoom-ish etiquette. Please don't forget to mute yourself unless you're speaking. But I also want to encourage you all to use your emojis, your reactions, and use the chat. I think last year when we did this, people, especially the honorees, were really gratified to read the chat later. So messages can be distributed there. And also you'll notice we're recording. So people who weren't able to attend, especially those of us who may have already gone to sleep, will be able to enjoy the celebration asynchronously. So with that, I will start us off. So this year, Deidre and I decided to spice it up just a little bit and to bookend the celebration with our 2 Distinguished Scholar Awards, in part to give our GMT winner a little bit of relief since it's very late there. So we're going to begin by honoring Nikki Watson, one of our 2 distinguished scholars this year. And it's been a newfound tradition to create a video slideshow for each award, Distinguished Scholar Award winner. So we could gather scholars and friends to give virtual toasts. So without further ado, I'm going to drum up and share with you the slideshow for Nikki.
Hello, Nikki. I wish I could be at the wonderful occasion of your winning the Distinguished Scholar Award from the Keats-Shelley Association of America. It is such an honor and well-deserved. I wish I could show you an artifact or a photograph in this little greeting instead. Perhaps I could somewhere find in my house the CD-ROM, yes, CD-ROM, from the Tourism and Literature Conference, Travel, Imagination, and Myth in July 2004, where I think we first met, and we both twigged that we were both working on literary tourism. And here are some of the artifacts that emerged much quicker than my book, The Literary Tourist, the groundbreaking book that I cited as much as I could in mine, and You're Amazing, the author's effects, both of which I've relished enormously. And in between, the conference that you organized in London and the collection of essays and all the other amazing work that you've inspired. And I just hope we keep working in this field. I'm currently working on a Literary House Museum of an African-American poet in Virginia. Here's to the return of travel so that we can coincide in Oxford or elsewhere. And here's to the Society for having the insight to give you the award. Congratulations, and many, many happy returns in future technologies, including the outcome of the CD-ROM. Bye.
Hello, everyone. From Oxford, it's Katrina Seth here, just to say hurrah for Nikki, as someone who has collaborated with her over several years as part of the Romantic Europe project in all its dimensions. I know what an extraordinarily strong character she is when it comes to organizing things, when it comes to getting things done. And congratulations to her, and congratulations to you all for recognizing her achievements.
Congratulations, Nicola, from New York. I wish I could be there to celebrate with you in person. Doing this via Zoom feels utterly inadequate to either your accomplishments or your charms. There should be lamé-clad individuals casting rose petals all about and lots of drinks. I did wear my biggest earrings, though, just for you. Thank you also for being the most inspirational, glamorous, extraordinary, and frankly terrifying tutor for me at Harvard. I was so lucky to get to study with you.
Hi, Nikki. This is me. This message should have been recorded in Paris, where I was a week ago. I thought it would be absolutely appropriate, given what's behind us, dreaming romantic Europe, which is what brought us together. Unfortunately, the weather in Paris was appalling. It's true that we love Paris in the winter, in the springtime and everything, but it was just pissing down all the time. So I thought, well, let's wait for when I'm in the dry at home, and let's send Nikki a very, very special message. I still remember when I think it was at the Bars conference in Cardiff a few years ago, you approached a group of us and you said, we need to do something European. And lo and behold, here behind us is one of the fruits of that initial conversation and what came out of it. So really, when I was told that you were going to be a recipient of the Distinguished Scholar Award, I thought, well, who else? Who better than Nikki? So here's to your ability to bring people together, to your vision, to your commitment, and here's also to all our various meetings that we've had over the last few years around Europe, Oxford, Paris, Ravenna, Rome, of course, the very, very first one. Congratulations, dear friend. It's a real pleasure to be able to send you these greetings and warmest wishes. All the best, Nikki.
It's three.
Hello, Nikki. Deidre here. Hearty congratulations on receiving this honor from the Keats-Shelley Association. It is really great to have this opportunity to say how thankful I am for your scholarship, your commitment to our collective enterprise, your imagination, your zest for life and letters and new experiences, and most of all, your friendship. Not everyone present at this virtual gathering will know the zeal you bring to scholarly adventuring. The slides I'm going to show are just a sampling. Suffice it to say that when Nikki designs the itinerary, pilgrimages are always full of surprises, unexpected detours off the beaten track, even the occasional squabble with the GPS, or the sat-nav, as Nikki herself would call it. It is a delight and an education to be your friend. Congratulations, Nikki.
Hello, Paul Westover here from BYU. My professional debts to Nikki Watson are immense. She's been a friend for some 15 years now, but even if I had never met her, I would be grateful for her work. Every once in a while, a scholarly book comes out that defines a field almost in itself. The Literary Tourist was one of those books, and I know that it represents just one small aspect of the lifetime achievement for which Nikki is being recognized, but for me, it was the most important. It came out in 2006, when I was working on my dissertation, and at the time, actually, I thought that I was writing the first ever book-length study of literary tourism. So I was devastated when the book came out, but that was before I had a chance to reflect. I soon realized that something great was happening. A field was taking shape. There might actually be an audience out there for my project, and also there was this scholar from whom I could learn. A few months later, Nikki invited me to attend a conference she was organizing in London on literary tourism. I was so grateful to be included at that stage in my career. And then to top it all off, she asked me to contribute my essay to this infamously pink volume that she was pitching to Palgrave at the time. That early publication helped me on the job market. I think it probably helped pave the way for my monograph, which came out with Palgrave a few years later. So in short, the shape of my early career would be completely different without Nikki Watson's generosity and her mentorship. And I imagine there are many other scholars out there who have similar debts. I just want to say congrats, Nikki, on this well-deserved recognition. I'm grateful to be able to be part of this celebration in a small way. My best to everybody.
Hello, Nikki. Denmark calling. I find a suitably wintry and romantic background. Just a quick line to wish you all the very best and congratulations on the prize. Thoroughly deserved. Hope to see you both in this part of the world again as soon as it's possible. Take care now. All best. Ken.
Nikki Watson, you're a scholar, a distinguished scholar, recognized by the Keats-Shelley Association. And though the only word that rhymes is dollar, your lifelong work showed dedication. You made the writer's house into an ocean. An era changed the lakes for the ocean. I hereby salute you for keeping the poets alive and for helping make romanticism thrive. Congratulations, Nikki.
Nikki Watson, you have been an inspiring force as a brilliant scholar, public intellectual, and visionary organizer. But I, Sonia, am grateful to you personally as well as professionally for your many talents as an expert trip planner and tour guide, as an extraordinary storyteller, and as a skillful forager, especially of mushrooms. Since the time many years ago when you and Mary Favret invited me to be part of your volume At the Limits of Romanticism, I have benefited from being in conversation with you. You have been a generous colleague and a valued friend. Thank you, Nikki, for sharing your stores of knowledge and your spirit of adventure with me. Congratulations on this honor, and cheers to you.
Thank you all for those toasts. And now I will officially turn it over to Mary Favre, who will give the encomium.
Thanks, Kate. This is a huge honor for me, and I'm just so delighted to be here to celebrate Nikki. I'm sorry, Nikki, we can't be in the same place, but I look forward to the time when we can. I'm going to set up my teleprompter here, so just give me a second as I launch this encomium. Nicola J. Watson, professor of English at the Open University in the UK, graduate of the University of Oxford, and survivor of various US universities, including Harvard, Northwestern, and Indiana, has authored or co-authored 4 books, edited or co-edited 5 more, guided the British Association for Romantic Studies, helped found and lead the ERA, the other ERA, European Romanticisms and Association, consulted and collaborated with countless museums, foundations, and television programs, and pretty much transformed the geography of Romantic studies in Britain and the rest of Europe. Anyone who knows Nicola Watson can readily identify several outstanding characteristics, and you've heard many of them in the toast. So in no special order, she is 1, a formidable manager of everything from households to holidays to conferences to international organizations. 2, an indefatigable intellect. The hour is late, the bottle's drained, and she's still the sharpest person in the room. 3, a table talker of wicked skill. 4, a genius in the archive. 5, a writer of entrancing prose. And finally, a generous and generative collaborator. Those who know her well will add that she cooks as if she could be paid for it, gardens as if her life depended on it, and strides the hills, lanes, and cliffs of her homeland as if she were a lake poet. And she can sing magnificently. So to this list, I want to add one more item, because I believe I know Nikki fairly well. She is, and modesty may move her to deny this, but she is truly a sorceress. This no-nonsense manner and crisp pragmatism that she conveys do not gainsay the fact that she dabbles in magic, in hidden and obscure desires, in mysteries and obsessions. She traffics in talismans and spends her days, nights, weeks, months visiting haunted and hallowed ground. No question, she conjures ghosts. We saw one. And how is it, you might ask, that we see her at one moment in Grasmere, another Oslo, and before you can turn around, Rome, Singapore, or Westminster Abbey? It's not simply picaresque or sentimental journey. It's supernatural. If there is a necromanticism, to borrow Paul Westover's phrase, then Nicola Watson is its high priestess. Just because she's supremely organized doesn't mean she isn't practicing dark arts. And I'm only half joking here. Throughout her scholarly career, Nicola Watson has been tugging at, working to unravel a pious version of Romanticism, where high-minded men and women, rich in high-minded ideas, bestow upon their readers something called literature, a golden inheritance that will provide for a better life. But forget enlightenment, forget moral improvement, or even revolution. Her incessant tugging has unveiled a realm of desires, pleasures, and attachments rarely welcome in the scholarly realm of British literature. These are the desires of everyday readers that she works to bring to light. Their attachments are embodied, often erotic, and powerfully disruptive. Her first book, Revolution in the Form of the British Novel, 1790 to 1820, pulled out of the novel what had been overlooked: exchanges of letters, often hidden or surreptitious, objects of writing, yes, but also objects of desire. She found them smuggled into novels to discharge radical and disruptive longings, well before they discharged any radical or disruptive ideas. These then would be her not so dark materials: charged objects, hidden or unacknowledged desires, longings powerful enough to reshape the world. And they were to be culled from what might be called the secret life of books, which happens also to be the title of a BBC series on which she consulted. She practiced in what might seem an innocent locale, editing Scott's The Antiquary for OUP. But The Antiquary gave her keys to the powers trapped in collected objects, relics of the past, and antiquated buildings. From her sojourn with the Wizard of the North, her project took off. She dallied with the ghosts of Elizabeth I and Mary, Queen of Scots. England's Elizabeth, An Afterlife in Fame and Fantasy, which she co-authored with Michael Dobson, marks her first deep analysis of afterlives and the debt which literature must pay to them. From there, she began her pilgrimages, traversing Europe to trace the forces that create literary tourists and propel their own pilgrimages. Nicola Watson took these desires quite seriously and made them significant for scholars. With an unrivaled learnedness, she understood and distilled their power in the literary tourist, readers, and places in Romantic and Victorian Britain, the tame title of which obscures its restless energy. This is the energy working to remap Romanticism so that it becomes not just a matter of reading or even viewing, but also of bodies transported quite literally by what they read, a Romanticism of material objects bestowed, handled, and enshrined. Children are welcomed into this revisionary realm. In essays and in 2 edited collections on children's literature, she and her collaborators study the captivation of young hearts and minds. The overarching quest targets no one grail, but collections of grails dispersed across the planet. The antiquary's beloved relics, as much as the objets arrayed in any writer's home. at Walden or Abbotsford or Ile-Saint-Pierre. In the author's Effects on Writers' House Museums, which came out in 2020, she offers her challenge again, demanding that we reckon with the hair of Keats, the dress of Dickinson, or the spectacles of Woolf, as well as items in the gift shop, to recast the practice of reading writers we thought, with our expertise, we knew. What Nicola Watson is about with all this sorcery is calling our attention to what we scholars have so often wanted to ignore, the forces of desire and connection. I won't try to purify them by calling them love, the forces unleashed when people read books. This is, she has demonstrated, very much the business of Romanticism, serious business that simultaneously asks us to take ourselves less seriously. These forces can be manipulated, twisted, redirected. She shows us that too, but they do not disappear. Relics remain. Her scholarship wants to map the force field created by these potent currents as they wax and wane and wax anew. Her extensive multimedia public outreach does the same. And her efforts in the profession, foremost her leadership of DREAM, that is Dreaming Romantic Europe, about which you just heard, an AHRC-funded network, has significantly altered the contours of Romanticism, especially in Europe, fostering conversations and gathering people across national and institutional divides, and culminating in the extraordinary online exhibition Rêve, R-E-V-E, Romantic Europe, the virtual exhibition, which brings to light touchstone, talismanic objects, exemplifying pan-European aspects of Romanticism. Over 150 objects drawn from across Europe and beyond for the use of any would-be sorceress's apprentice. It is a generous and generative magic. It has transformed how we understand Romanticism, our shared object of study, and that our must spread well beyond this room, or this virtual room, to include colleagues across several countries and continents. It has pushed us to reconsider, maybe even look askance at the work of literature with a capital L. And it has given us, perhaps most of all, a profound and lasting delight. Thank you, Nikki.
So I'd like to invite everyone, thank you, Mary, for that beautiful, beautiful encomium. I'd like to invite everyone to raise a glass or raise an emoji for a hear, hear to our wonderful, distinguished scholar. And now, Nikki, we invite you to say a few words.
Thank you so much, Kate. And I hope you can hear me. I'm sitting here in a hotel room in Sweden, somewhere close to 1 o'clock in the morning, it begins to feel. And I have survived about 15 speeches. We left the wedding early. I think we left at the 8-hour mark. And I think at the 15 speech mark, there was still quite a lot to come. So this has inspired me to brevity. And if that weren't enough to inspire me to brevity, I have to say that Mary's exquisite writing, and indeed the sight of all my so many friends, both live on screen and in that video, would inspire me not so much to brevity as simply sort of silence, really. I feel rather overwhelmed by it. But first of all, therefore, I would like briefly to thank Mary so much for that. And to put it no higher, for something like 30 years of personal friendship and intellectual companionship. Mary's refined and exquisite sensibility has always been an enormous inspiration to me. You know, what can I say? Thank you so much, Mary, for those words, which make me feel as though my life has just flashed before my eyes, really. in various ways. Secondly, I should so like to thank the Keats-Shelley Association of America. I am truly, truly honored to find myself not just at this wonderful occasion, but included in the company of previous distinguished scholars. I've admired them all. Many of them have been friends and colleagues of mine. Some of them have even done their very best to mentor me. I'm not certain that I'm a very easy person to mentor, but when I think about it, I so wish that Stuart Sperry or Marilyn Gall, just to name two, could be here today, because I owe them, and I owe many of the people whom I can see on my screen and the remaining two screens that I can't see, a very great deal. After all, writing books is absolutely no use unless there's somebody to read them and be interested in it. So these people who are on the screen, that's you, are the people that one talks about, some of the things that are most important to me and to you in the world, really. I'm so sad, therefore, not to be sitting down to dinner with you at Washington. I had planned such a wild party. It would have been a wild night. But when I thought about it a bit, I thought, well, I've spent my life in a great deal of virtual conversation, both on paper and indeed on screen. And in fact, I've spent a very great part of my life being a time traveler in virtual romantic times and spaces. Like you, 200 years old, as it were, I have admired Cooper's cucumbers, caught Walter Scott climbing out of his bedroom window at Dove Cottage in search of a decent hotel breakfast, peeped in on Jane Austen writing at her small table, walked up Easdale with the with Wordsworth. That would have been surprising. Dined at Joseph Johnson's with Godwin and Wollstonecraft, swum with Byron at Lerici, and looked out over the Spanish steps with Joseph Seven. So perhaps coinciding with you all virtually is not quite so inappropriate after all, even though I still would like to have had a drink and made some, seen my old friends, made new friends perhaps. Less whimsically, looking back and listening to what people have had to say, I realized that most of my work to date, perhaps all of it, can be summed up as being about the precarious sentimental mechanisms by which the present tries to connect at once to the past and through it to the fickle future. Mechanisms from sentimental letters through to the objects collected in literary museums. And this connection to the past through in the service of the present and in service of the future, I take to be part of the proper project of the humanities. And part, that is, of the project of exploring what it has been, what it is, and what it will be to be human. We romanticists, whether we're invested in or skeptical, as I am, of the visionary, are still critical to the making of that properly human future. And it's quite a task. So I want to raise a virtual glass to you, my fellow romanticists, and my fellow unacknowledged legislators, to the future health of the Keats-Shelley Association of America. And thank you all so much. To your health.
Thank you so much for that those wonderful remarks. And I hope everyone can take a minute to just feel all the love that's circulating right now. So we're going to change gears, shift the tempo a little bit, and I'm going to hand things over to my colleague and fellow director, Olivia Moy, who will present the 2 Forsheimer Award winners. And I want to give a giant thanks to Olivia, who in her first few months on the Keats-Shelley Association board stepped in when Grant Scott, who had been convening and organizing the Forsheimer Awards, had to attend to some other things, and Olivia stepped in and took the reins on this project and really kind of broadened and opened up the awards, I think, for the next generation of scholars. So without further ado, Olivia, please talk to us about the award winners.
Thanks, Kate. Yes, it's my great honor really to announce the winners of the 2021 Carl H. Forsheimer Jr. Prize, which provides funding for research expenses related to scholarship in Romantic era literature and culture. The prize supports research that expands traditional definitions of the field and its futures, including projects engaging race, empire, gender, class, and global romanticisms, approached through diverse methodological and theoretical frameworks. The awards honor Carl H. Forsheimer Jr., passed away in 1996, past president, vigorous advocate, and generous benefactor to the Keats-Shelley Association. Since 2000, when the awards began, past winners have used their awards to fund research travel, to work with archives in Ghana, Jamaica, Spain, and the UK. Our first winner is Valentina Aparicio of Queen Mary University of London for her project, Women Meeting Women, Scottish Travelers in Latin America, 1780 to 1880. This project explores how 5 Scottish or Scottish connected women travel writers gained new insights into gender, race, and class as a result of their interactions with Latin American women. In examining Scottish women, Aparicio comes at the question of decolonization in exciting ways, not from the English metropole, but from the perspective of the Northern periphery. The project will contribute to our efforts to decolonize literary studies, not merely by studying the role women writers had in the processes and mechanisms of colonization, but more importantly, by examining the influences Latin American women had on European female identity. With the Forsheimer grant, Valentina will be able to study the influence of, and this is so interesting, Brazilian Empress Maria Leopoldina on Mariah Graham using letters held in the National Library of Brazil in Rio de Janeiro. So I think she is here with us today, and hopefully the Zoom camera can focus on her. Congratulations.
Yeah, hi, I'm here. Yeah, thank you so much. I am really, really grateful for this. This is a very prestigious award. So thank you for the support. I wouldn't be able to go if it wasn't for it. So thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. And our second winner is Elisa Cozzi of Queen's College, Oxford, for her project, Italy and the Irish Romantics, Networks, Nations, and Literary Encounters, 1798 to 1848. This project explores how Irish writers in exile in Italy developed a national self-consciousness and preoccupation with freedom through their engagement with Italian literature and culture. Cozzi's study of post-Union Ireland and pre-unification Italy produces a picture of national identity influenced from without and within. Beyond political pressures, she reveals a nationhood deeply influenced by author networks outside what we think of as the traditional literary canon. The project is particularly revelatory in terms of its tracing of literary connections in Ireland after the Acts of Union, a crucial moment in Irish literature's engagement with national identity. By also pivoting away from the more established scholarly terrain of Franco-Irish relations, Cozzi's pioneering examination of figurations of Italy in Irish literature alerts us to how Italian foreignness comes to shape Irish national identity and the Irish-Italian literary networks forging these representations. As the judges wrote, this project is one to watch because of the major contributions it stands to make to Romanticism, Irish studies, and transatlantic studies. With the Forsheimer grant, Cozzi will be able to bring to light Italian connections in papers and unpublished works at the Forsheimer collection here in New York City, where we are. So congratulations there. Valentina and Elisa are both here zooming in. So Elisa, if you'd like to wave, we'd love to see you. And I thank you both for staying up later in the evening to be here. Both prize winners will receive $3,000 to further their research projects. And before moving on, I really would like to thank the judges on our prize committee, which consisted of Regina Hewitt from University of South Florida, Tora Brilo from University of Colorado Boulder, and Cesar Soto, Grace College. All three took great care in evaluating the applications we received. I'd also like to thank K-SAA board members, Lizette Sawitsky and Omar Miranda, for helping to revise and refine this year's prize description so that it better reflects the state of the field today. And finally, a big thank you to Doucette Fisher, who previously coordinated the awards for many years, graciously passed along all of her expertise. So congratulations again to Valentina and Elisa. We look forward to seeing the evolution of your inspiring projects.
Thank you. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Valentina, Elisa, and Olivia. Now we'll turn to Richard Shaw and Ann Wallace, who will present the two 2021 Essay Prize winners. And they will be reading the Essay Prize winner committee citation for each.
Thank you. It is such a privilege to get to read the brilliant and varied work of our colleagues. I want to thank especially Mark Lucier and Ann Wallace for doing this tireless work with good cheer. With them, the work never seemed like work. The three of us considered more than 300 articles this year. In the end, we chose two co-winners. I will read the citation for Celeste Langen, and Ann Wallace will read the one for Padma Rangarajan. Congratulations to Celeste Langen for her brilliant essay, Repetition Run Riot, Refrains, Slogans, and Graffiti, which appeared in the Wordsworth Circle in spring 2021. Who knew a refrain could be so profound? In Celeste Langen's capacious hands, double entry bookkeeping cannot keep up with the ways in which the phrasal repetitions surrounding the Peterloo massacre shades into history, and lyric becomes event as forms of possibility gather in the gaps between speech and act to alter our sense of the present and its burdens. At once elegant and profound, the drumbeat of refrain reveals an entire galaxy of possibility, from lyric through hashtag and historical repetition to excitable utterance, an utterance whose very repetition denies any one-to-one relationship between history and context. And it is Langen's critical ability to see possibility where others have seen only prose that allows meanings and openings to convene around the refrain, engendering new ways of imagining form's claims to history, history's reliance upon form, along with the aporias of history that excitable speech papers over. So congratulations to Celeste for this remarkable and brilliant essay. I'll now turn things over to Ann Wallace.
Thank you, Richard. I want to thank the Keats-Shelley Association for the terrific opportunity to work together with Richard and with Mark. As Richard said, this was just a wonderful experience, both working with them and having the opportunity to read so many wonderful essays written in the fields of Romanticism over the last year. It is my great pleasure, a real delight, to be able to present the prize citation for Padma Rangarajan's With a Knife at One's Throat, Irish Terrorism in the O'Briens and the O'Flahertys, which appeared in the December 2020 issue of 19th Century Literature. Padma Rangarajan's powerful essay recognizes Sidney Owens and Lady Morgan's 1827 novel, The O'Briens and the O'Flahertys, as, and I quote her here, one of the earliest texts to identify the specifically colonial contours of modern terrorism. In Rangarajan's reading, Morgan's novel does not retreat to the generic safe haven of Gothicism in order to critique the regime, but instead inverts that expectation, explicitly diagnosing colonial dispossession as the source of Gothic traumas imprinted on land, community, body, and narrative. In an argument that gains force as it continues, sustained by vigorous prose, Rangarajan unfolds the novel's historically specific mapping of what she terms symbiotic terrorism a culture of reciprocal violence, in which the terror perpetrated by the state's repressive apparatus produces and continually renews the anti-state terrorism of rebellion and revolution. Rangajaran moves with persuasive ease among the novel's text, contemporary historical contexts, and the inevitable hindsight through which, in this history that is also ours, and I quote her now, we can begin to see the extraordinary discursive potency of terrorism. Thank you for this essay, Professor Rangajaran, and many congratulations.
Thank you, Anne and Richard, for beautiful citations. And I'll just leave it up to you, Celeste and Padma, if you'd like to just say thanks and wave. And
I did want to say a couple of words of thanks, just because I used to fantasize when I was a younger scholar about doing one of these year-long review, work and review essays. But as I've gotten older, it becomes more of a nightmare than a fantasy. And so I really appreciate the labor of the committee. And I just want to say how that kind of unremunerated labor is so important to the autonomy of intellectual work. And so I just want to say I really appreciate it. And I have to also give a shout out to a former winner of the Keats-Shelley Association Prize, Maureen McLean, to whom I can always send work that is more of a riotous assemblage of thought than an organized body. She's a much more generous critic than my own internal critic, and I couldn't have done it without her.
Yes, also just want to echo my thanks to the committee. This was totally unexpected and delightful and just an amazing thing to receive, excuse me. And I also want to thank Jeff Cox, who think much like Maureen is for Celeste, is someone to whom I send just a sort of outpouring of insane verbiage, which he somehow brilliantly manages to transform or see an essay into. And he read this for me before it was published. And so I thank him very much for that. So thank you, Jeff, and thank you to the committee.
wonderful. Thank you all for giving us this opportunity to celebrate your work. And thank you again to our committee. So now we will change gears back to thinking of our distinguished scholars. And we will celebrate now John Clancher. And I will do the Zoom hijinks to share my screen for his video toast.
I'm delighted to see you receive this award, John, and send you my warmest congratulations. By any measure, yours is a remarkable body of work, both in breaking new ground in romantic studies and in adding new dimension to the whole question of how we go about understanding the formation of literary and intellectual structures in the 19th century across a broad range of fields. When I first met you back in graduate school in one of Paul Sheets's seminars, I remember thinking to myself, now this is a special mind, you better pay attention. And it's to my enduring benefit that I did. The making of English reading audiences has been central to my own thinking about literary authority, and I keep returning to it again and again, learning something new each time I do. It's truly a work that has opened up avenues of thought and analysis for the rest of us, and it epitomizes the generative power of the reconfiguration of literary cultural history you've been effecting over the course of your career. For this, and for the sheer pleasure of reading your work, who else would think of wild bibliography? Much thanks.
Hi, John. Congratulations. And I just wanted to say you're an amazing mentor, and I'm so grateful for everything that you've done for me and for your friendship. So cheers and have a great night. And I wish we were all there to celebrate you in person. Take care.
Congratulations, John! Cheers!
1, 2, 3.
Congratulations, John, from Essays in Romanticism.
Hi, John. Try as I might, and it's been 4 days now, I can't get it right. It being a tribute appropriate to the occasion, and at the same time, synced to my sense of you. The trouble is, you're too dear to me for the standard moves. I mean the overview, the defining achievement, the telling insight, the list of learning and talents. Even anecdote, the most intimate of the genres, comes across as synecdoche. And presenting you, which means seizing a standpoint and generalizing from it, well, there's the problem. The fact is, I want to keep you near, and I want to keep you mine. When I see you at MLA or Nasser or any of the conference venues, the weirdness I feel in those institutional spaces falls away. You know what I mean, or maybe it's just me, that sense of being detached, distracted, anxious, extraneous, sort of vagrant from myself. And then there you are, across a crowded room. We have a good long hug, we go for a drink or a meal, and we talk about everything and nothing. Family, work, friends, food, movies, ideas, stuff we hate, mostly nonsense in the profession, and stuff we love. You listen to me like no one else, bringing home to what I say as I feel I'm doing when I listen to you. And it's grand, it sets me straight again. I'm companioned in the ways that matter. I remember why I chose this line of work, namely because it's not a line of work. It's a life, and a life of elective affinities. You see the irony or the self-contradiction, the performative contradiction in my words. I'm pretty sure that everyone listening to my selfish little anti-generic tribute to you feels exactly as I do. That you are theirs alone, and that there's no one else like you, and that we need you right there where you always are, beside us in this life way that we've chosen. Congratulations, old friend. You really are the best. Marjorie.
Dear John, I'm sorry I can't be there to raise a glass to you on the momentous occasion of your receiving the Keats-Shelley Association of America Distinguished Scholar Award. To distinguish is to separate and divide. You have spent a career exploring how audiences, like classes, are discriminated and made, and how canons and institutions distinguish themselves and are formed. You have been also the first to identify, explore, and permanently illuminate invaluable resources that no one else had done the work to explain, contextualize, and read. How appropriate, then, that you should be awarded this distinction. I am so grateful to you, as your student and your colleague, for all the ways you have taught me and the profession as a whole to see and to know. Congratulations.
Hi, John. Hello from the Huntington Library, which is a great mecca of Keats, Shelley, research has been over many years. I'm checking in to congratulate you on your well-deserved award from the Keats-Shelley Association this year. Richly deserved. I've been following your work for so long. I've learned so much from you. All the way back to your book on the making of English reading audiences in 1986, all the way through your most recent work. I particularly wanted to thank you for including me in the volume on Raymond Williams and Romanticism. It's a really great special issue that I was happy to be a part of, and also for letting me publish your fabulous book about the transformation of the arts and sciences in the Romantic period. I was just working with a young postdoc from UCLA recently whose own work is very much inspired by that book. So I hope you and Nikki have a great evening, whether it's in person or Zoom. Looking a little bit uncertain whether we'll be getting together in the new year as much as we hoped. I look forward to being able to hoist a glass with you in person before too long. All the best, John.
Hello, John. Deidre here. I am so happy that the Keats-Shelley Association is honoring you with its Distinguished Scholar Award, because it gives me a chance to thank you for all that your writing has done for me and meant to me. Your early work on print history showed me that it was possible to write a history of the making of English reading audiences, a history that would both honor and correct social historians' narratives about class formation. I've been carting a photocopy of the entirety of your first book around with me for years, from graduate school to job to job to job to job. It's a little dog-eared now. Your first book made it possible for me years later to write my first book. Your more recent work on knowledge and cultural institutions in the Romantic Age taught me about wild bibliography. Wild bibliography, who'd have thunk it? I've taken up that concept and have been running with it ever since. I'm also really grateful to you, John, because watching you at conferences, at lectures, at post-conference dinners has been such a fine education in how to be in the profession, how to be a good person, mentor, and colleague, as well as a smart scholar. I'm still learning in that department too, but I'll never stop trying to emulate you or cease being grateful to you for that example. Congratulations, John. Here's to you.
Hi, John. John Mee here from York. I just want to congratulate you on your well-deserved award from the K-SAA, and toast someone who's had a really serious and long-lasting influence in my career. Well done, mate, and I hope to see you soon when all this pandemic's done with. Bye.
Hi, John. It's Paul here in Ottawa. Congratulations on this wonderful award and recognition. It's been too long since we've seen each other in person, but I'm looking forward to getting together and raising a glass to celebrate this. Take care of yourself. I hope you're doing well.
1, 2, 3. Congratulations, John. That was terrible. Should we try again? Do we have to go slow?
I think we went too slow.
All right, let's try again. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Congratulations, John. Oh, we can toast him. That's a good idea. I have this lovely Diet Red Bull because it's the middle of the afternoon.
Got a champagne of beers.
Oh, yes.
Coffee
All
mug.
right, let's try again. 1, 2, 3. Congratulations, John.
Hi, John. I'm so delighted to hear that you're receiving the K-SAA Award for Distinguished Scholar this year. My heartiest congratulations. You've given so much and cared so deeply about our fields of study. This is really well deserved. It's all that much sweeter for me since I can attest to both your personal and professional generosity, the emphatic interventions that you've made in the writing of my books, and the adventures we've been able to share, usually involving you finding something that I lost in places like Ithaca and LA. So here's to all your accomplishments, all the memories of a scholar critic's life lived so richly so far, and to all that you'll surely be able to achieve in the coming years. Congratulations.
Now I'd like to invite Jonathan Sachs to give our encomium.
Oops, try that again. Okay, there we go. Thanks, Kate. And thanks, everyone. I see there are 4 people on this Zoom. So a special and warm thanks to all of you for sticking around for this occasion on a Saturday night. It's delightful to see everyone. I feel a little overcome having seen that video tribute, and cheers to Deidre and Kate for organizing it. I will confess that it's a tough act to follow, but with no further ado, I'll begin my remarks. On my office bookshelf, there's a well-thumbed Routledge paperback from 1989 with a monochrome image of a triumphal procession across which the title appears in vibrant orange italics. Many of you who went to graduate school in the 90s will remember it. It's here that I first encountered an essay on English Romanticism and cultural production. Others in the volume were, at the time perhaps, more accomplished than the assistant professor at Boston University who authored this essay. They included Gayatri Spivak, Stephen Greenblatt, Hayden White, and Catherine Gallagher, to name 4. Not bad company to keep. But then again, John Clancher would go on to win a Guggenheim just 2 years later. Even among such luminaries, John's essay was distinctive. In 10 or so economical pages, marked by what I would later come to recognize as a signature style of concision exploding into ranging complexity and piercing insight, John offered an account of the turn to history in Romantic studies and a succinct summary of the place of Romanticism in the 20th century American Academy. The essay rejects the book's title, The New Historicism, in favor of the more British formulation, cultural materialism. English Romantic writings, John insists, and I quote him here, were staged within an unstable ensemble of older institutions in crisis, state and church, and emerging institutional events which pressured any act of cultural production, the marketplace and its industrializing, the new media and their reading audiences, the alternative institutions of radical dissent, shifting modes of hierarchy. Reading Romantic texts historically will therefore often mean trying to position these texts among institutional pressures and possibilities. That's John. The last sentence, with its emphasis on positioning texts among institutional pressures and possibilities, might stand as a reasonable précis of John's considerable scholarship over the past 30 plus years. But there's another phrase hiding there that I think better captures what John is after: institutional events. We often think of an institution as something fixed and firm, while an event is evanescent and fleeting. But in John's hands, institutions move and flex and bend. They are made, not given, by the struggle of complex social forces, and therefore always contain elements of contingency. And the same kind of struggles often attempt to ossify and fix the meaning of events, like the French Revolution. Literary texts bear the weight of these struggles. The relationship, singular, between institutions and events and texts. That is John's quarry, the through line of his scholarship. And the three are consistently transfigured, a key word in the Clancher lexicon, through material processes of organizing and organization. These are concepts that are brought out more thoroughly in the two monumental books that sit on either side of that 1989 essay, each of which has reshaped the way we understand Romanticism. It's typical of encomiums like this one to hear terms like masterpiece, tour de force, game changer, etc., tossed around freely. But I'm really not sure what other kinds of terms to use. The Making of English Reading Audiences, 1987, took a deep dive, the deepest of dives, into Romantic periodicals to make a groundbreaking argument about the place of literary texts in the formation of class, about the emergence of industrial society and the reformation of social order, about public opinion, and ultimately about the power of reading to shape these changes. And then, in 2013, came Transfiguring the Arts and Sciences, winner of the prestigious Jean-Pierre Baricelli Book Prize from ICR. In 7 lapidary chapters, this book shows us how the fields of culture and science mutually constitute one another, largely through a combination of public institutions and print media. John introduces us to a gallery of collectors, directors, and projectors, like Count Benjamin Rumford and Thomas Frognall Dibdin, and places them alongside more familiar figures like Samuel Coleridge, William Hazlitt, and Humphrey Davy. The result is what John calls in a memorable phrase, a sometimes crazy quilt assemblage of unevenly developed crystallizations. Those are his words. Knowledge formations are contingent, and it is in the Romantic period that the arts and the sciences and the relation between them gets transfigured. In both books, John sets out to show us the nitty-gritty of cultural strategy and conflict, but this always also plays out against the background of comparable struggles over cultural interpretation and literary studies in our own day. There's a density to John's writing in both of these books and in the many seminal articles that have appeared alongside them. This is work that won't accept easy answers and that goes all the way, 100% into an archive, a question, a problem. It's work that takes time to read, but it's also work that repays that time because it will stand the test of time. In bringing this account of John's scholarship to its culmination, I thought about including a lame joke here to make sure that I have your attention, which I can't take for granted. Zoom is a notoriously tricky and disembodied medium. And so it's a cruel irony that we're forced to use the platform to acknowledge one of the finest Romantic materialists, a scholar who has taught us all to regard what we might call the life world of Romanticism, the periodicals, the lectures, the debating societies, and the associations, the institutions, where the full-blooded life of Romantic actors hums and thrums and flows through networks, acknowledged and unacknowledged. And in recognizing that rich and teeming life world, we come also to recognize our own, perhaps smaller one, the often arcane world of Romantic criticism and scholarship, in which John has been such a key figure over the past decades. In this life world, John Clancher is notable for his humility, for his approachability, for the respect and collegiality that he extends to everyone in the room, from graduate students to decorated professors. I wasn't surprised to hear this in the video tributes that we just saw, nor in the chat that followed them. John is the opposite of arrogant, but still notable for his quietly authoritative command of the field, although I'm told by his students that he cannot manage his face when he dislikes an idea, and that on such occasions, his distaste resembles darkness visible. When I first saw John Clancher, introduced briefly to him in a hotel driveway, I was like a wide-eyed sports fan who meets his idol for an autograph out back of the stadium. I didn't ask John to sign my conference program, but that was a small act of restraint. Not much came of the meeting. Our paths crossed occasionally thereafter, until eventually I reviewed John's second book for ERR. In a typical gesture of intellectual generosity, John reached out to me to thank me for the review in an email full of warm compliments for digging deeply into the book's conceptual field. And so slowly, and then all at once, began one of the most fruitful intellectual collaborations of my academic career. Scholarship can be a lonely pursuit. And there was a time there where John was the person with whom I was in the most frequent contact apart from my spouse. And it was, I might add, a close second. In our exchanges and collaborations over the past 6 or 7 years, John's willingness to give of his time, his intellectual energy, his masterful command of the field has transfigured my thinking about Romanticism, sure, but more about what it means to be a scholar and a mentor. It's a powerful model not lost on his students, including Tora Brilo and Miranda Burgess, who similarly note the example that John sets in his big-hearted giving of time and support. John takes ideas seriously, we all do, but John also takes other people seriously, and the conveyance of that respect pushes his interlocutors, his students, and his collaborators to think their best thoughts. I'll give Miranda the last word here. She recalls the thrill of being in John's classroom, its lasting impact on her own scholarship, and also John's politically and ethically informed take on history and the range of historicist romanticisms, before concluding that romanticists, I quote Miranda here, romanticists needed that take then, and we still do. I couldn't agree more. And so please congratulate me, please join me in congratulating John Clancher as we welcome him into the ranks of the Keats-Shelley Association's distinguished scholars. Here's to you, John. We'll switch from whiskey to champagne. Cheers. And thank you very much also for asking me to do this. I think I didn't thank you at the beginning of my remarks, but I can't extend further appreciation. Cheers.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. John, any remarks you want to share with us?
You're muted, John.
Oh, thanks, Sonia. Great to see you. Yeah. So I will find my way over to this thing. Well, I feel overwhelmed. I'm just plain stunned. Thank you for this incredibly generous tribute. I owe special gratitude to Jonathan, among all of you, for his incredibly generous introduction and for the just continuous warmth and brilliance he's given to our collaborative projects over the last several years. I'm grateful for this occasion and for this award to the Keats-Shelley, Ina will know what that means, the Keats-Shelley Association of America for this award, especially to Neil for his career-long support that he's given my work, to Deidre for many rich dialogues that we've had in the past, and I very much hope and trust in the future. This award became quite concrete to me last week when an awesomely elegant plaque arrived in the mail, and its heft made me even more conscious, more concretely conscious of how much I owe to this community of romantic scholars that I've been so fortunate to be part of for the last 40 years. It also led me to try remembering how I got into romantic studies in the first place, and it wasn't a direct path. And before I go on with this, I just want to say how great it is to be with you and to see all of you again, and the many who've helped me in my work and commented on it over the years and in that wonderful video. So I'm brimming with cheer and good feeling here as I do this. But back to how I got to romanticism, I came up from Los Angeles City College, a kind of two-year institution that gave scrappy first-generation college students like me a chance to begin knowing the excitements of study and creativity during that late 60s period of great cultural and political ferment. I wrote more poetry and studied more films then than I did study or make critical arguments. By the time I transferred to a four-year college in Claremont, I hadn't yet declared any studies in literary history. That suddenly changed when I took courses in 18th century literature and in cultural anthropology. Although this was 1970, even before those disciplines had started to cross-pollinate, they had a common denominator for me in Kant, and learning to wrestle with Kant and his legacies made for what was probably the headiest semester of my college life. I owed this moment of intellectual awakening to two incredible teachers that I want to remember now, Beverly Houston for literature, Lorna Levine for social theory, and pay tribute to both of them, I'm afraid posthumously, for modeling critical practices of rigor and imagination. After that, I plunged into more literary history and I began to learn Romanticism, especially in light of the way that it was so unmistakably resonating with our historical moment, its idioms of revolution, decolonization, and new modes of social being. So at that point, I was uncertain, graduating from college, what direction to go in after the BA. I wound up working in a prison reform program in New Orleans, an experience so troubling that I began to read Foucault on Institutions, Marx on Class, Baldwin on Race, and then in the most intensive reading of that pivotal year, William Blake on How Prisons Are Built with Bricks of Religion, and much else. For me, that decided things. By the time I started graduate school at UCLA in 1972, I was oscillating between Marx on Capital and Northrop Frye on Blake, though it took several years to sort those relationships out. For that, I needed the guidance of a remarkable group of romanticists who helped make sense of it at UCLA: Bob Manicus, Peter Thorslev, Paul Sheets, and Fred Berwick. Among fellow classmates in those seminars, I met Ina Ferris, who was then already starting her groundbreaking work on Thackeray and Walter Scott, and who showed me the very example of what a scholar could mean and be, becoming a scholar could mean and be. And I wrote that before hearing Ina's comments tonight, and she reminded me that that was Paul Sheets' class. You never know where your intellectual life will take you next, but your material life has its own logic and determinants. I've worked in very different kinds of academic institutions, 2-year and 4-year colleges, traditional universities like UCLA or Boston University, and more specialized institutes like Carnegie Mellon or Caltech. Each has shaped my work in decidedly different ways. But over the years, despite my late 60s suspicions, I've learned how institutions are not simply set in stone. If they require criticism and opposition, which I have been happy to grant them along the way, they are also crucially enabling. And in historical moments like ours now, they require fierce defenses, new arguments for defending institutions of scholarship and of democracy alike. In that light, as in others, societies like the Keats-Shelley Association are so valuable to us for sustaining this indispensable cultural memory, as well as the reasons that we so value that inheritance, even in the most straitened conditions of pandemic or of untoward pressure on the humanities. With the great importance of Keats-Shelley Association's mission, I'm especially gratified by its recognition of my work. These thoughts lead to a couple of brief conclusions. Even when you're in full tilt research mode with all its heady pleasures, nothing grounds you quite like the expectant look of students waiting to learn from you, but also waiting to see if you are ready to learn from them. I haven't always met this test, but some of the students I've learned most from are here tonight for me to thank and always to admire: Tora, Miranda, Craig, Rebecca, and DJ. Last, if I entered grad school holding on to the sinews of Blake, I finished it by catching wing on Percy Shelley's revivifying West Wind, as his later work became a lodestar for my dissertation on print, political life, and visionary poetics. One of the many expressions in his writings that have stayed with me since, out of those many expressions, the one I'm thinking of now concerns the collective character of our intellectual lives, or in his own much better words, quote, the cloud of mind that is discharging its collected lightning, unquote. For me, it was the collected lightning of an intense historical moment that ushered me into Romantic studies, and the equally powerful, but ever so much more tangible and long gestating kinds of collective lightning that my colleagues and friends, both in this room and beyond it, have represented to me over these many years. In that spirit, I want to thank you all deeply for your galvanizing intellectual community and for the high honor that you have paid me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. And let's raise one more toast to all of our winners tonight, but also to each other for being here virtually, despite all the things. Cheers. And now I will pass the baton, or kind of throw it virtually back to Neil for some ending remarks.
Oh, this ceremony always takes my breath away, and shows just how much a community matters to the kind of work we do, and just how special so many people in our community are. I want to congratulate all of the winners tonight. And Nikki and John, like everyone else, I owe you both so much. Thank you. This concludes our ceremony tonight, except for a few things that I just want to mention quickly before we let you go and celebrate on your own. Please plan to join us at our virtual members meeting in May, where we once again promise to run a program of widespread interest. Last May, it was led by Deidre's brilliant organizing of romantic book collecting as our subject. You'll be hearing more about our plans soon. We're also looking forward in early July to a Romantic Bicentennial Series event, which will be focused on Shelley's last days, co-sponsored by the Keats-Shelley House in Rome, the Shelley 200 Initiative, and the Byron Society of America. This special event will include an international Zoom reading of The Triumph of Life in over 10 languages, as well as a Zoom roundtable and a short film about the final months of Shelley's life. We began the Romantic Bicentennial series in 2016 with a symposium on the haunted Geneva summer of 1816. And some 30 events later, it will conclude in 2024 with the 200th anniversary of Byron's death. Taking its place will be a new multi-year initiative on romantic futures that will soon be inviting you to help us plan. As I mentioned in my letter to members, we're in the midst of fundamentally reconfiguring the association from top to bottom, although we'll still have our annual ceremonies, so that it fully embodies and enacts our articulated values. You can see some of this activity on our blog in such new special series as Rethinking Romanticism and an exploration from multiple perspectives of Romantic era responses to the long history of slavery, empire, and colonialism, as well as a two-part virtual roundtable towards an anti-racist, undisciplined Romanticism. And we co-sponsored with Romantic Circles last summer a 4-week anti-racist pedagogies colloquium with 7 fellows in the cohort. Look for our new website to be launched this winter, along with a number of ways for you as members to engage with our programs and to help shape our work. Speaking of members, all of our activity depends upon the strong support of you. If you have not yet become a member or renewed your membership, please do so now. Kate is posting in the chat section a link for joining us. Next year, finally, we hope at long last to raise a glass in celebration of our prize winners when we gather face to face at MLA. Meanwhile, we welcome your distinguished scholar nominations for future consideration. Thanks again to our presenters and honorees and award committees, and to Deidre and Kate for making it all possible. Good night and Happy New Year to you all.